I'm Jesse Skellington of Larp Heroes, and you'll see in previous videos that I've been doing, we talked about using hot glue to put inside the core, and that it would allow you to use a trim router and carve out whatever diameter you need of a recess so that your core can fit in comfortably, and use contact cement to adhere it fully around the core. Pretty exciting stuff, but we're going to talk about some of the tips and techniques that have gone beyond that video since last we worked on it. Once again, I want to say thanks so much for everybody coming out and getting me through Facebook or email, or just coming up to me in person to let me know what they've discovered as tips and tricks. With all of us working on this, we're going to figure this out so that we can have long-lasting weapons that'll last a lifetime, as long as they're manhandled and stored appropriately. I have some duct tape weapons that have 20 years old now, which are pretty exciting, but I keep them very well maintained. But of course, I let them go out and get played with by other people as well, like Jake Vincent, cool cat, and they're still lasting to this day, 20 years later. So hopefully with this technique, we're going to have some really long-lasting weapons. What we ran into in the previous video was where the Pepsi can, beer can, whatever you use to create a negative space so that you can fill it up with hot glue and get an exact form fit of the core, we were having a hard time sticking with it. So the key thing that we're looking at here is that now that we have the hot glue totally put here in, and that you have this there's no seam whatsoever here. You're just smooth from one transition to the other. Problem here that we experienced is as this gets tugged down, it eventually separates from the core itself. And then over time we found out that this thing totally slides out. So what we've come up to resolve these couple issues is we drilled some holes in the very top of the area here. I don't know if you drill down further and put some more holes in, potentially it may create some instability or break the core itself. I don't think it will happen, but it may. So out there in Larp land, if you run across this and it does break, let me know, and let's figure out, send me pictures of it or video, and let me know what I'm seeing so that I can kind of guesstimate what the materials might be doing in there. Let me move this back. So once we've drilled the holes, filled it with hot glue, and then hopefully that'll create some teeth for it to bite on, so it doesn't easily slide out like we've just experienced. Also, we put a metal core in. May experience with, like, instead of steel, maybe a softer metal, or even a rod that's fairly flexible, maybe a nylon rod. So the fantasy here is that when you take this and you bend it, the need for the hot glue to bend will happen 1/2 inch out further. And then that way it won't put the stress right here at this juncture. So when it's starting to bend, it's going to bend out here. We'll do some more experimentation, and maybe a nylon rod, or maybe a brass or copper rod that has some flex into it, but it doesn't truly bend. Maybe what we're going to look for so that this doesn't puncture through the hot glue. I don't think it's going to occur, just because I'm designing this for light touch systems. And I think in the heavier touch systems, such as Belagarth, where they don't hit for light, they hit for hard, and if they call out light, it's actually saying, I'm not going to accept that blow, which is pretty cool. But that's, again, the way that they play their game. And I think with enough foam around it, again, I think the force will be distributed throughout the nature of this rig or jig that we put up at this resolution to help for no tip blowout, will be resolved. I think as we go through, I'll do another video probably in a year or two, or maybe 6 months, or even 3 days from now, that will talk about how to optimize this so we don't see that failure at all. So that's what we're attempting to do right here. So what I've done here is I've wrapped it with the Pepsi can, and you can see in other videos, previous videos, how this process actually goes down. So I kind of cheated the process, we're just running through here. So let me go ahead and peel this off. So normally, and you can see in the videos, that once you start to peel this up and you really try to pull this stuff apart, it just isn't. Which became a hassle. For a different project, I have a 1-inch core, and it was a nightmare. We just peeled it off just chunk by chunk, by piece. So to actually fix this problem, we actually dumped it into a pot of ice while it was still warm and let it super cool really fast. And then this thing just popped right off. We were like, we got to figure it out. We don't have to peel it off. And that was with the 1-inch core. Now this one here is 0.75 or 3/4 core size. For Dystopia Rising, this is going to be a two-handed weapon. So to easily fix this problem, take your heat gun and lightly go over this very quickly. You don't need a lot. And then you'll see this just peels right up. And whoa! No, okay, good. Oh, sorry, that's just water. Okay. Now, if you get this too hot, it'll actually kind of pucker and buckle. And I think it adds a level of texture that I think is going to be good for the contact cement to hold on to the foam. I don't know yet. I haven't done enough of these yet. Now, previously with this, we had made these for short weapons for Dystopia Rising, which were 22 inches, and we were using a 3/8 inch core. And this process is much simpler at that smaller depth or smaller diameter. When you get into larger diameters, it becomes even more of a problem. Kind of like the difference between bowling steel for armor, cold roll steel versus stainless steel. And the difference in gauges, whether it be 16-inch gauge stainless steel or 16 gauge stainless steel. I don't know if that helps any of you now that I think about it. So anyhow, enough of my rambling there. So let me go get this done. There we go. See, it just peels right off there. And has just a little bit of ribbing in here, a little bit of texture, but not bad. If you really let this sit for a longer time than you want, it'll actually really melt your hot glue, again, pretty fast. And it can get really messy at that point. So just really quite light hits. I actually hit it on my skin so I can feel the temperatures going on and how hot it is and how close I'm getting. So, and be gentle with that again, don't get too close. Use your brains. Was it common sense is not commonly practiced? So anyhow, we're good to go here. So now let me bend this so you can see the tip is really flexible. It's really wanting to bend at the metal core and not here at the junction between between the junction of the core and the hot glue, and that's the goal of that we're trying to aim for. So on the larger guys, having an internal core that comes out about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch based on your diameter, I really like so far, depending on let's see if I can get this over here, depending on the depth of the thickness of the foam, from the depth from the surface of the foam to where it actually touches the core, whether it be 1 inch, 1.5 inches, like for an axe. But for a sword, you really want as thin profile as possible. With the polyurethane or Y20 foams, you can have a 1/8 inch outside to core depth or gauge, and you won't get core down on your knuckles. On the side, so a courtesy pad. or courtesy padding as they call it. And what will happen is you'll have your fist out and it'll come down and it'll just tap your knuckles, and it really just knuckles out. And when that happens, you'll just get, your knuckles will swell up and it's really annoying and it hurts. And you won't be able to grip the weapons very well. I'll show pictures of it probably later on when I find them, because I've had it happen a couple times. So depending on how big your core is, how much foam you have on the outside, whether it's an axe, this won't have a tendency to pull through. And the longer you can pull this out. I mean, the longer the hot glue can be. This right now is 2 inches. I was originally going with 1.5 inches, but now with the metal in the core, I think it'll give me a nice rigid head for this particular two-handed weapon, which will look like the shaft of a car, or actually a small cart. It'll have bolts on it, and maybe eventually you'll see some photos of it. So here, once again, and I'll show you a difference between the two. This is a 3/4 inch core, and this one here is a 1/2 inch core. And you can see the 1/4 inch difference, but at that point, I would go with 1.5 inches. Let me just verify that. Nope, this one here is actually at 2 inches as well. So, and then also what you can do is take a knife and then round the outside of this, or you can take a Dremel to it or a grinder and then round those off so that they fit more appropriately within the rounded tip of your foam on the inside. Once again, we're wrapping things up here. We talked about the hot glue tips, and we've talked about some of the solutions after our first round of exploration. Again, thank you all out there for getting back to me and let me know what you've experienced. Whether you're going from a 1/2 inch core to a 3/4 core, here's one of the latest weapons that I built using the pole, flag pole that you can buy online. It's a fiberglass core that's 1 inch in diameter, and you're really just filling up tons of the hot glue. But once again, I think it's real worth the process so you don't have a tip blowout, especially when you put as much time as I put into this hobby horse head. So once again, you know, catch me on Facebook, Jesse Skellington. You catch me on YouTube, which you're finding me here, and then also you can find me on Twitter, and or catch me in an email and let me know what you've discovered, or feel free to ping me in any questions. And happy LARPing. We'll see you soon. I swear to God, this is like aerobic exercise. We gotta flip-flop through everything. It's like, yeah, avoid all the... yeah, right. Okay, brain gone.